Maya sat at the kitchen table, staring at her morning coffee. The steam rose in perfect spirals, but she couldn't hear the gentle bubbling sound she used to love. 3 months had passed since the doctor delivered the news that changed everything. Her hearing was fading, and there was no way to stop it. "Good morning, beautiful," her husband Jake said from behind her. She didn't turn around. She hadn't heard him come into the kitchen. Jake walked around to face her, his smile fading when he saw her distant expression. He gently touched her shoulder. Maya looked up, startled. "Oh, hi," she said softly. "I didn't hear you." These four words had become the soundtrack of their new life together. Maya didn't hear the doorbell anymore. She missed phone calls. The television volume kept getting louder and louder until their neighbors started complaining. Jake pulled out the chair next to her and sat down. He had learned to always make sure she could see his face when he spoke. The doctors had explained that reading lips would help, but Maya was still learning how to do it. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, speaking clearly but not too slowly. He had made that mistake before, and Maya had gotten upset. She didn't want to feel like a child who couldn't understand. "I'm okay," she lied. Maya had been saying she was okay for 3 months now, but Jake could see the sadness in her eyes. She was grieving the loss of something most people never think about, the simple ability to hear the world around them. The disease had a complicated name that Jake could barely pronounce. What mattered was what it was doing to his wife, her inner ear was slowly breaking down, taking away not just her hearing, but also her balance sometimes. She had fallen twice last week, once in the grocery store and once getting out of bed. Maya picked up her coffee mug and took a sip. The liquid was lukewarm now, but she didn't seem to notice. She was lost in her own thoughts, trying to remember what Jake's laugh sounded like. It had only been 3 months, but already some sounds were becoming fuzzy memories. "I have to go to work soon," Jake said, checking his watch. He worked at a local accounting firm, the same job he had held for 6 years, but everything felt different now. He worried about Maya all day, wondering if she was safe at home alone. Maya nodded and tried to smile. She used to work too, as a kindergarten teacher. But dealing with 25 energetic 5-year-olds when you couldn't hear them properly had become impossible. She had taken a leave of absence that everyone knew would probably become permanent. Jake stood up and walked to the sink to rinse his coffee mug. The sound of running water was something Maya could still hear, but it sounded muffled, like she was underwater. She watched her husband's back as he moved around their small kitchen, the same kitchen where they had shared breakfast every morning for 4 years. "Maya," he said, turning back to her. She was looking out the window at their neighbor's garden. He said her name again, a little louder this time. She turned to him. "I love you," Jake said clearly, looking directly into her eyes. Maya's forehead wrinkled slightly. "What did you say?" "I love you," he repeated, his voice a bit stronger now. She leaned forward in her chair, cupping her hand around her right ear. "I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you." Jake's heart broke a little. These were the 3 words he had said to her thousands of times over the years. He had whispered them in the morning, shouted them across crowded restaurants, and mumbled them sleepily at night. Now, his own wife couldn't hear them. He moved closer to her and spoke louder. "I love you, Maya." This time she heard him, and her eyes filled with tears, not because she was sad, but because she was relieved. She had been afraid that when she couldn't hear those words anymore, maybe they would stop being true. "I love you, too," she whispered back, but Jake could see the fear in her expression. What would happen when even shouting wasn't loud enough? What would happen when she couldn't hear him at all? They had been to 3 different doctors, and they all said the same thing. Maya's hearing would continue to get worse. There were hearing aids that might help for a while, but eventually she would live in a world of complete silence. Jake sat back down and took her hands in his. They were soft and warm, the same hands that had held his on their wedding day 3 years ago. Maya's hands told stories, a small scar from when she fell off her bike as a child, a ring marked from the jewelry she always wore, fingers that were always moving because she talked with her hands even when she could hear perfectly. "We're going to figure this out," he said, squeezing her hands gently. "We're going to learn new ways to talk to each other." Maya nodded, but she wasn't sure she believed him. How do you replace something as basic as hearing? How do you have a conversation when words become impossible? Their neighbor's dog started barking outside, but Maya didn't react. Jake realized she couldn't hear it at all. Just 3 months ago, that same dog's barking would have annoyed her. Now, she lived in a world where whole pieces of life were simply missing. The clock on the wall showed 7:45. Jake needed to leave for work in 15 minutes. But he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay home and figure out how to fix this impossible situation. He wanted to research new treatments and call more doctors, and somehow find a way to give his wife her hearing back. But he also knew that Maya needed him to be strong, to act like their life could still be normal even when everything had changed. "I'll be home by 6, he said, standing up and kissing the top of her head. "Maybe we can watch that cooking show you like." Maya smiled, a real smile this time. "The one with the funny chef?" "Yeah, that one." She nodded enthusiastically. Watching television was one of the few things that still felt normal, even though Jake had to turn the volume up so high that it hurt his ears. As Jake got ready to leave, Maya stayed at the kitchen table, finishing her cold coffee and watching the world outside their window. She could see cars driving by, people walking their dogs, children waiting for the school bus. But it was like watching a movie with no sound, beautiful but somehow incomplete. Jake kissed her goodbye, and she watched him walk down their front path to his car. He turned back and waved, and she waved back. It was a small gesture, but it felt important somehow. A way of saying "I love you" without any words at all. After he left, Maya sat alone in their quiet apartment, surrounded by the silence that was slowly becoming her new reality. She picked up her phone and scrolled through old voice messages Jake had left her, playing them over and over while she still could. 6 months had passed since Maya first couldn't hear Jake say he loved her. Their small apartment now looked like a technology store had exploded inside it. Flashing lights replaced doorbells. A special alarm clock with vibrating pads sat under Maya's side of the mattress. Text messages had become their primary way of communicating, even when they were sitting right next to each other. Jake had signed them both up for sign language classes at the community center. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, they sat in a circle with 12 other people, learning to speak with their hands. Maya hated it. "I don't want to learn this," she had told Jake after their 3rd class. "Learning sign language feels like giving up." But Jake kept going anyway. He practiced finger spelling during his lunch breaks at work. He watched online videos on his phone while waiting in line at the grocery store. He was determined to master this new language, even if Maya wasn't ready for it yet. Their communication had become a strange dance. Maya would watch Jake's lips carefully, trying to catch every word. When that didn't work, he would write things down on the notepad they kept in every room. Sometimes he would use the few signs he had learned, which usually made Maya laugh because his hand movements were still clumsy and awkward. The real test came when they decided to host a dinner party. It was their first time having friends over. Since Maya's diagnosis, Jake had been worried about it for weeks. But Maya insisted she wanted their life to feel normal again. Their friends Lisa and Mike arrived at 7, bringing flowers and a bottle of wine. Lisa had been Maya's college roommate, and Mike was Jake's co-worker. They had been to dozens of dinner parties at Jake and Maya's apartment over the years. But this one felt different from the moment they walked in. "The place looks great," Lisa said, looking around at all the new equipment. She was trying to act normal, but her eyes kept drifting to the flashing light system and the special foam. With the oversized display. Maya was in the kitchen, putting finishing touches on the pasta, sauce she had been working on all afternoon. Cooking had become one of her favorite activities, because it was something she could still do perfectly. She could smell the garlic and herbs. She could see when the sauce was the right consistency, and she could taste everything to make sure it was seasoned properly. "Dinner smells amazing," Mike called out from the living room. Maya didn't respond because she hadn't heard him. Jake walked into the kitchen and tapped Maya on the shoulder. Mike says dinner smells good, he said, facing her so she could read his lips. Maya smiled and nodded toward the living room. Tell him thank you. It should be ready in about 10 minutes. They all sat down at the small dining table that Jake had decorated with candles in their best dishes. The conversation started normally enough, with Lisa talking about her new job and Mike sharing funny stories from the office. But as the evening went on, the challenges became more obvious. Maya kept asking people to repeat themselves. When everyone laughed at something Mike said, Maya looked confused because she had missed the joke. Jake found himself becoming a translator, repeating things louder or writing them down on napkins. So Maya, Lisa said, how are you doing with everything? Maya looked at Jake, who was chewing his food and hadn't noticed that Lisa was talking. I'm sorry. What did you say? I asked how you're doing, Lisa repeated, speaking more slowly and clearly. I'm managing, Maya said, which was the same answer she gave everyone who asked. She had learned that people didn't really want to hear about the daily struggles, the frustration, or the fear. They wanted to hear that she was okay. As the evening continued, Maya began to feel more and more isolated. Her friends were having animated conversations about movies they had seen, music they loved, and places they wanted to travel. Maya used to be the most talkative person in any group, but now she found herself sitting quietly, trying to follow along with conversations that moved too fast for her to catch. Jake, she said suddenly, interrupting a story Mike was telling about his weekend fishing trip. Can you tell me you love me? The table went quiet. Lisa and Mike looked at each other uncomfortably. Jake's face turned red. Of course, Jake said. Softly, I can't hear you, Maya said, leaning forward. Can you say it louder? Jake cleared his throat. I love you, he said, his voice raised enough for her to hear. Maya smiled, but her eyes were sad. Louder, she said. I love you, Jake repeated, almost shouting now. Lisa and Mike stared at their plates, clearly uncomfortable with this intimate moment happening in front of them. Maya seemed satisfied, but Jake could see that she was fighting back tears. After their friends left, Maya and Jake sat on their couch without talking for a long time. The silence between them felt heavy and complicated. I'm sorry about tonight, Maya finally said. You don't need to apologize for anything, Jake replied. Yes, I do. Maya turned to face him. I'm becoming the person everyone has to work around. I'm the reason conversations stop. I'm the reason people have to repeat themselves and speak slower and write things down. Jake wanted to argue with her, but he knew she was right. He had watched their friends struggle to include Maya in the conversation. He had seen the look of relief on their faces when they finally said goodbye and could go back to their normal lives. I'm becoming a burden, Maya continued. Not just to you, but to everyone. You're not a burden, Jake said firmly. You're my wife. You're the person I chose to spend my life with. Nothing about that has changed. But Maya wasn't convinced. She had quit her teaching job because she couldn't hear the children properly. She had stopped answering the phone because she couldn't understand what people were saying. She had given up going to movies, concerts, and restaurants because they were too frustrating now. I used to be fun, she said quietly. I used to be the person who made everyone laugh. Now I'm just the person everyone feels sorry for. Jake moved closer to her on the couch and took her hands. You're still you, he said. You're still the woman who makes the best pasta sauce in the city. You're still the person who knows exactly what to say when I have a bad day at work. You're still the woman I fell in love with. Maya looked at him, trying to read his lips in the dim light of their living room. Say it again, she whispered. I love you, Jake said clearly. I need to hear it, Maya said, her voice breaking. I need to know that even though I'm different now, even though I'm harder to love now, you still mean it. Jake felt his heart break for his wife. He realized that this wasn't really about hearing the words. It was about feeling connected to him, feeling like she still mattered, feeling like she was still worth loving even though her disability was changing their entire life. I love you, he said louder, looking directly into her eyes. I love you. More now than I did 6 months ago. I love you more than I did on our wedding day. I love you enough to learn a new language. I love you enough to change our entire life if that's what it takes. Maya finally smiled, a real smile this time. For the first time in months, she felt like maybe they could figure this out together. Maybe love really could be stronger than silence. 1 year had passed since the doctor first said the words that changed everything. Maya's world had become completely silent now. Not the peaceful kind of silence that people search for during meditation or quiet walks in nature. This was different. This was the silence of isolation, of being cut off from the world around her. Jake came home from work to find Maya sitting in the same spot on the couch, where he had left her that morning. She was staring at the television, but the sound was off. She had given up trying to follow shows with captions months ago. The words moved fast, and she felt like she was always 3 sentences behind everyone else. "Hey," Jake said, walking into their living room. Maya didn't turn around. He had forgotten again that she couldn't hear him approaching. Jake walked around to face her and waved his hand gently to get her attention. Maya looked up at him with tired eyes. She had been sleeping poorly for weeks. The special alarm clock that vibrated under her pillow often woke her up throughout the night, even when it wasn't time to get up. "How was your day?" Jake asked, sitting down next to her. He spoke the words out loud even though he knew she couldn't hear them. It was a habit he couldn't break. Maya shrugged. "Same as yesterday. Same as tomorrow probably." Jake's heart sank. His wife had always been full of energy and dreams. She used to plan weekend trips, try new recipes, and drag him to art galleries and street festivals. Now she barely left the apartment except for doctor appointments. "I stopped by the grocery store," Jake said, pulling out his phone to type the words instead. Maya read the message and nodded. "Double quotes, thank you," she said quietly. Her voice sounded different now. When you can't hear yourself speak, it's hard to know if you're talking too loud or too soft. Maya had become self-conscious about her voice, so she barely used it anymore. Jake had been working longer hours lately. His boss had been understanding about Maya's condition, but the accounting firm was busy, and Jake needed the overtime pay. The medical bills were piling up, and Maya's disability payments didn't cover much. But if Jake was being honest with himself, he also stayed late at work because it was easier than coming home to the heavy silence that filled their apartment. "I'm thinking about getting a second job." Jake typed on his phone and showed Maya the screen. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "It's because of me, isn't it? Because I can't work anymore." "No," Jake said, shaking his head. "It's just temporary, until we figure things out." But Maya knew the truth. She had been a financial burden on their family for a year now. She couldn't contribute to their household income. She couldn't even do simple things like answer the phone when Jake's mother called, or deal with repair people when something broke in their apartment. "I saw Dr. Peterson again today," Maya said, referring to her hearing specialist. "She wants me to try hearing aids." Jake's face lit up with hope. "That's great news. Maybe they'll help." Maya looked down at her hands. "I don't want them." "Why?" "Not because they're ugly. Because they'll make me look like an old person. Because they're just another reminder that I'm broken." Jake wanted to argue with her, but he understood. Maya had always been proud of her appearance. She had beautiful long hair that she used to style differently every day. She had a closet full of colorful clothes and jewelry that she loved wearing. The hearing aids felt like admitting defeat. "You're not broken," Jake typed on his phone. "You're just different." Different is just a nice way of saying broken. Maya replied. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud crash from the apartment. Upstairs, Jake looked up at the ceiling, annoyed by their noisy neighbors. Maya hadn't even noticed. She lived in a world where things could fall and break and explode, and she would never know unless she saw it happen. "I miss music," Maya said suddenly. "I miss your laugh. I miss the sound of rain on the windows. I miss everything." Jake didn't know what to say. He had been trying to stay positive for both of them. But the truth was that he missed those things too. He missed having real conversations with his wife. He missed making her laugh. He missed the way she used to sing in the shower every morning. "Say it," Maya said, looking at him with desperate eyes. "Say what?" tell me you love me." Jake's stomach dropped. This had become their daily ritual, but it was getting harder every time. "I love you," he said, even though he knew she couldn't hear him. "I can't hear you," Maya said, leaning forward. "Say it louder." "I love you," Jake repeated, raising his voice. Maya shook her head. "Louder." "I love you," Jake shouted, his voice echoing in their small apartment. "I still can't hear you," Maya said. And she started crying. "I can't hear you anymore, Jake. I can't hear anything." Jake pulled her into his arms and held her while she sobbed. He had known this day would come. The doctors had warned them that Maya's hearing would continue to deteriorate until it was completely gone. But knowing something and experiencing it are two different things. "I'm so scared," Maya whispered against his chest. "I'm scared that if I can't hear you say you love me, maybe you'll stop meaning it." Jake felt his own tears starting. He had been trying to be strong for Maya, but the weight of their situation was crushing him too. He was tired of being a translator, a caregiver, and a cheerleader. He was tired of pretending that everything was going to be okay when clearly it wasn't. "I'm scared, too," he admitted. "I'm scared that I don't know how to love you the way you need to be loved." Maya pulled back to look at his face. "What do you mean?" "I don't know how to make you feel better. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to be married to someone who lives in a completely different world than I do." It was the first time Jake had been completely honest about his feelings. He felt guilty for admitting it, but he also felt relieved. He had been carrying this burden alone for months. "I don't know how to be married to you either," Maya said. "I don't know how to be a wife when I can't hear my husband. I don't know how to be myself when I can't hear my own voice." They sat together on their couch, both crying, both feeling lost and alone despite being right next to each other. The silence between them felt bigger than ever before. "Maybe we should learn sign language," Maya said finally. "Maybe we should stop pretending that this is temporary and start learning how to live with it." Jake nodded, wiping his eyes. "Maybe we should." For the first time in months, they both felt like they were finally being honest about their situation. They couldn't hear each other anymore, but maybe they could find new ways to communicate. Maybe they could learn to love each other in a language that didn't require sound. "I love you," Jake said, and this time he didn't try to say it louder. Instead, he took Maya's hands and pressed them against his chest so she could feel his heartbeat. "I love you," he repeated, and Maya felt the vibration of his words through her fingertips. It wasn't the same as hearing those words, but it was something. It was a beginning. 18 months had passed since Maya's world went completely silent, but something magical had happened in their small apartment. What once felt like a prison of silence had transformed into something beautiful and unexpected. Maya stood in their kitchen, making breakfast while Jake got ready for work. She couldn't hear the sizzling of eggs in the pan, but she could smell them cooking perfectly. She had learned to cook using all her other senses: the smell of garlic browning, the sight of onions becoming translucent, the feel of pasta that was cooked just right. Jake walked into the kitchen, and instead of saying good morning like he used to, he gently touched Maya's shoulder. When she turned around, he signed good morning, beautiful with his hands. His movements were fluid and confident now, nothing like the clumsy finger spelling he had attempted a year ago. Maya smiled and signed back, "Good morning, handsome." Then she pointed to the pan and made a gesture that meant almost ready. Their morning routine had become a dance of visual communication. Jake would sign about his plans for the day while Maya prepared his lunch. She would tell him about her schedule using hand gestures and facial expressions. They had learned that sign language wasn't just about moving your hands. It was about using your whole body to communicate. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. After that difficult conversation on their couch a year ago, they had both committed to learning sign language properly. They attended classes twice a week and practiced at home every evening. Jake had even convinced some of his coworkers to learn basic signs so they could communicate with Maya when she visited the office. Maya had also made a decision that surprised everyone. She had gone back to work, but in a completely different field. She now worked as a counselor at a center for people who had recently lost their hearing. 3 days a week, she helped other people navigate the same journey she had been on. I have a new client today, Maya signed to Jake, a woman who lost her hearing in a car accident. She's about my age. Jake nodded and signed back. You'll be great with her. You always know exactly what to say. Maya had discovered that losing her hearing had given her a special gift. She could understand the fear, anger, and grief that newly deaf people experience because she had felt all of those emotions herself. She could offer hope because she was living proof that life could be beautiful even in complete silence. Their apartment had been transformed too. The walls were covered with colorful sticky notes where they wrote messages to each other. Throughout the day, pickup milk might be stuck to the refrigerator. I love you appeared on the bathroom mirror. Don't forget dinner with your parents tonight would be placed on Jake's computer. They had also developed their own special signals. A gentle touch on the arm meant I need your attention. 2 quick taps meant I love you. A hand on the heart meant I'm thinking about you. These small gestures had become their secret language, something that belonged only to them. The real test came when Maya's parents visited for her birthday. They had been worried about their daughter for the past year and a half. They had seen her struggle through the depression and isolation. They weren't sure what to expect when they arrived, but when they walked into the apartment, they were amazed. Jake and Maya were laughing together while cooking dinner. They were communicating effortlessly through sign language, facial expressions, and touch. The heavy sadness that had filled their home for so long was gone. How are you doing, sweetheart? Maya's mother asked, speaking slowly and clearly. Maya smiled and signed her response while speaking out loud at the same time. I'm doing really well, Mom. Better than I've been in a long time. Jake translated for Maya's parents, who were still learning to understand sign language. She says she's happy. She loves her new job, and we've learned so many new ways to communicate. During dinner, Jake told Maya's parents about all the changes in their lives. He had become fluent in sign language and was even teaching basic signs to other hearing people. At the community center, Maya had found her calling as a counselor and was helping dozens of people adjust to life without hearing. The strangest thing, Jake said, is that I think we communicate better now than we ever did before. Maya nodded enthusiastically. When you can't rely on hearing, you have to really pay attention to everything else. We look at each other more. We touch more. We're more present with each other. After dinner, Maya's parents watched as Jake and Maya cleaned up the kitchen together. They moved around each other smoothly, communicating through glances and gestures. Jake would point to a dish, and Maya would nod and put it in the dishwasher. Maya would gesture toward the leftovers, and Jake would get containers from the cabinet. It's like watching a dance, Maya's father whispered to her mother. Later that evening, Maya's parents were getting ready to leave when Maya asked Jake to do something special. She wanted him to tell her he loved her, but not in the way she used to ask. Jake stood in front of Maya and began to sign. His hands moved gracefully as he told her about all the things he loved. About her, he signed about her strength, her compassion, her ability to make other people feel better. He told her about the way she made him laugh, the way she challenged him to be better, the way she had taught him that love wasn't just about words. Maya's eyes filled with happy tears as she watched her husband's hands create poetry in the air. When he finished, she signed back to him, telling him about all the ways he had supported her, learned with her, and grown with her. Maya's parents couldn't understand all the signs, but they could see the love radiating between their daughter and son-in-law. This wasn't the broken couple they had worried about for so long. This was a couple who had found something deeper than they had ever had before. I can see your love now, Maya signed to Jake. I can see it in your eyes when you look at me. I can see it in the way you learn my language. I can see it in the way you touch me. I can see it in the way you never gave up on us. Jake signed back. I can see your love too, in the way you help other people, in the way you made our home beautiful again, in the way you taught me that there's so many ways to say I love you without making any sound at all. Maya's mother started crying, but they were tears of joy. Her daughter had found happiness again, but it was a different kind of happiness than before. It was deeper, more intentional, more grateful. As Maya's parents said goodbye, Jake and Maya stood in their doorway, holding hands. They waved until the car disappeared down the street. Then they turned to each other and signed simultaneously. I love you. They had learned that love wasn't about hearing the right words. It was about seeing them, feeling them, and living them every single day. 2 years had passed since Maya first lost her hearing completely. Their small apartment had become something she never expected, a gathering place for people who understood the world of silence. Every Thursday evening, their living room filled with couples who were learning to love each other in new ways. Maya looked around at the group of 8 people sitting in their circle of chairs. There was Carlos, a construction worker who had lost his hearing in an accident, and his wife Rosa, who was learning sign language. There was elderly Mr. Chen, whose hearing had faded gradually over years, and his patient daughter who translated. For him, there was Amy, a young mother who had been born deaf but married a hearing man, and her husband David, who was struggling to communicate with their deaf toddler. Welcome everyone. Maya signed and spoke at the same time. She had learned to do both so that everyone could understand her, whether they were deaf or hearing. Tonight we're going to talk about finding new ways to show love when words aren't enough. Jake sat next to Maya, ready to help translate or facilitate the discussion. He had become as much a part of these support group meetings as she was. Together, they had created a safe space where people could share their fears, frustrations, and discoveries. I want to start with a story. Maya continued. 2 years ago, I used to beg my husband to tell me he loved me. I would ask him to say it louder and louder because I was so afraid that if I couldn't hear those words, maybe they would stop being true. The group listened intently. Most of them had experienced similar fears. The worry that love might disappear, along with hearing, was something almost everyone in the deaf community understood. But something beautiful happened, Maya went on, when I stopped being able to hear those words. Jake and I discovered that there are hundreds of ways to say I love you that don't require any sound at all. Carlos raised his hand. Like what? He asked. Rosa translated his question into sign language for the deaf members of the group. Jake smiled and stood up. Well, every morning I write a note and put it in Maya's lunch bag. Sometimes it's just a smiley face. Sometimes it's a reminder about something we're doing that evening. But it's my way of saying I'm thinking about you throughout the day. And Jake leaves his coffee mug in the sink every morning, Maya added with a laugh. He used to rinse it out, but now he leaves it there because he knows I like washing it for him. It's a small thing, but it's become our little ritual. Amy, the young mother, looked curious. What about bigger things? How do you handle important conversations? Maya and Jake exchanged a look. They had learned that some conversations were actually easier in sign language, because you had to be more intentional with your words. We have a rule, Maya explained. For important conversations, we sit facing each other and put our phones away. We give each other our complete attention. When you're signing, you can't multitask. You have to be fully present. Mr. Chen's daughter spoke up. My father is worried that he's becoming a burden. He thinks we're all tired of repeating things for him. This was a common concern, and Maya's heart went out to the elderly man. Mr. Chen, she said, looking directly at him while his daughter translated, you're not a burden. You're giving your family the gift of learning patience and creativity. You're teaching them that love isn't about convenience. It's about commitment. The conversation continued for an hour, with each couple sharing their challenges and victories. Carlos and Rosa had learned to communicate through touch. Different hand squeezes meant different things. Amy and David had created a visual system for their toddler using colorful cards and gestures. Mr. Chen and his daughter had started taking art classes together, where they could express themselves without words. As the meeting was winding down, a new couple arrived late. The woman looked nervous and had obviously been crying. The man beside her looked exhausted and overwhelmed. I'm sorry we're late, the man said. I'm Tom, and this is my wife Lisa. She lost her hearing last month, and we're not handling it very well. Maya's heart immediately went out to them. She remembered that feeling of being completely lost and afraid. Please, sit down, she said. You're in the right place. Lisa looked around the room at all the couples who seemed to be managing their situations so well. I don't know how you all do it, she said, her voice shaking. I feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm becoming invisible. The room fell silent. Everyone remembered feeling that way at some point. Lisa. Maya said gently, Can you hear me right now? Lisa leaned forward, straining to catch Maya's words. I can hear a little, but it's very muffled. I want you to ask your husband to tell you he loves you, Maya said. Lisa looked confused. What? Ask him to say he loves you, Maya repeated. Lisa turned to Tom. Can you tell me you love me? Tom looked uncomfortable with everyone watching, but he said, I love you, Lisa. Lisa's face crumpled. I can barely hear you. I'm so sorry. I'm broken. Maya stood up and walked over to where Lisa and Tom were sitting. You're not broken, she said firmly. You're just learning a new language. Tom, I want you to try something different. Maya knelt beside Tom and showed him how to cup Lisa's face gently in his hands. Now look directly into her eyes and tell her you love her. Don't worry about how loud you are. Just focus on meaning every word. Tom looked into Lisa's eyes and said, I love you. But this time, Lisa could read his lips clearly, and more importantly, she could see the love in his eyes. Now, Maya said, I want you to take her hands and put them on your chest, over your heart. Tom followed Maya's instructions. Lisa's hands rested on his chest, and she could feel his heartbeat. Tell her again, Maya said. I love you, Tom said, and Lisa felt the vibration of his words through her hands. She felt his heart beating faster with emotion. Lisa started crying, but this time they were tears of relief. I can feel it, she whispered. I can feel that you mean it. The whole room was moved by this moment. Maya had shown them all something important, that love wasn't just heard, it was felt, seen, and experienced through all the senses. This is what we've learned, Maya addressed the group. Love isn't just about the words we say. It's about the way we look at each other. It's about the way we touch each other. It's about the time we spend together. It's about learning each other's languages, whether that's sign language or just the language of being truly present. As the evening ended and people began to leave, Lisa and Tom stayed behind to talk more with Maya and Jake. How did you know? Lisa asked Maya. How did you know that would work? Maya smiled. Because that's how Jake taught me that love doesn't need sound. He showed me that love is something you feel in your whole body, not just your ears. Jake put his arm around Maya and signed, I love you, where everyone could see. Maya signed back, I love you too. Tom looked amazed. It's like watching a different kind of music, he said. That's exactly what it is, Maya replied. We've learned to make music with our hands, our eyes, our hearts. We've learned that the most beautiful conversations happen when you're not just listening with your ears, but with your whole soul. As Lisa and Tom left that night, they were holding hands and looking at each other differently. They had learned that losing hearing didn't mean losing connection. It meant finding new ways to connect that were even deeper than before. Maya and Jake cleaned up their living room in comfortable silence, communicating through glances and gestures they had developed over 2 years of loving each other without sound. They had become living proof that love doesn't just survive. When everything changes, sometimes it becomes more beautiful than ever before. I'm proud of us. Maya signed to Jake as they turned off the lights. Me too. Jake signed back. We've learned how to help other people find their way through the silence. And we've learned that the most important words aren't always the ones you hear, Maya added. Sometimes they're the ones you feel. They had discovered that love echoes not through sound, but through every gesture, every look, every moment of choosing to stay and learn and grow together. They had become teachers of a language that everyone could understand, the language of love. That transcends all barriers.